Greetings, history enthusiasts, and welcome back to Vibing History. Tonight, we journey not to the grand empires or famous battlefields, but to a silent, windswept corner of the Sahara, a place where time itself seems to have held its breath. We're heading to Takarkori, a humble rock shelter in what is now Libya. Yet its story echoes with the very origins of human adaptation, innovation, and resilience in a world undergoing dramatic change. As we delve into the secrets unearthed from this ancient haven, I invite you to settle in, let the narrative wash over you, and perhaps find a moment of peace in the whispers of the past. If you find yourself captivated by this incredible journey, please consider leaving a like, a comment, or sharing this video with fellow seekers of forgotten truths. Now, let us begin our exploration. Picture, if you will, a vast, undulating expanse of golden sand, stretching to the horizon under an unforgiving sun. This is the Sahara Desert as we know it today, a landscape synonymous with harshness and isolation. But for a moment, let that image fade. Let your mind travel back in time, not just a few centuries, but many millennia, to a period when this formidable desert was something entirely different. Imagine instead a landscape vibrant with life, a green Sahara, where winding rivers snaked through fertile valleys, where expansive lakes shimmered under a softer sky, and where diverse flora and fauna thrived in abundance. This isn't a fantasy, but a historical reality, a testament to the dramatic shifts our planet has undergone. And nestled within this ancient, verdant heart of the Sahara, in what is now the hyper-arid Tadrart Acacus Mountains of southwestern Libya, lies a place called Takarkori. Takarkori is not merely an archaeological site. It is a profound echo chamber of human endurance and adaptation, a window into a world almost unimaginably different from our own. For thousands of years, from approximately 10,170 years before the present to about 4,650 years before the present, humans made this rock shelter their home. And as the climate around them shifted, as the green heart of the Sahara slowly, inexorably, faded into the desert we recognize, so too did the lives and strategies of the people of Takarkori transform. The rock shelter itself is strategically located within a valley, Wadi Takarkori, which serves as a natural divide between the Algerian and Libyan Acacus Mountains. This valley, in a bygone era, was a lifeline. From the late Acacus period, stretching into the Middle Pastoral period, the Wadi Tanazuft, a vital watercourse, likely flowed continuously, creating a vibrant network of wetlands. Imagine the sound of rushing water, the rustling of reeds, the calls of waterfowl that once filled this valley. Nearby, two significant lakes, Takarkori Lake and Garret Uda, along with a scattering of smaller lakes nestled among the dunes, created an oasis of unparalleled biodiversity. These bodies of water supported a rich tapestry of aquatic plants and animals. And the people of Takarkori, with their keen understanding of their environment, capitalized on this bounty. Archaeological evidence from this period paints a vivid picture. A high density of fish remains found at the site tells us that fishing wasn't just an occasional activity, but a routine and crucial part of their diet. Think of long days spent by the water's edge, patiently awaiting a catch, the communal effort of hauling in nets, the satisfaction of a fresh meal. But it wasn't just fish. The resourceful inhabitants of Takarkori also harnessed the power of aquatic flora. Residues found on ancient potsherds, fragments of pottery that once held their meals, reveal the processing of plants like potamogeton, a submerged aquatic plant. Imagine them meticulously gathering these plants, perhaps grinding them, perhaps cooking them into stews or porridges. This early evidence of plant processing and pottery at Takarkori, alongside a similar discovery at Unearthing, marks these sites as some of the very first in the world to demonstrate this sophisticated culinary practice. It's a testament to their ingenuity, transforming wild resources into sustenance, using newly developed technologies. Then, as often happens in the grand sweep of Earth's history, things began to change. As we move into the early pastoral period, subtle shifts in the climate started to impact this verdant landscape. The smaller lakes, once teeming with life, may have begun to recede, their shallow waters evaporating under a subtly intensifying sun. Yet Takarkori Lake and Tadrart Acacus, the larger, more resilient bodies of water, held on. They persisted through the middle pastoral period, serving as crucial anchors for life in a slowly shifting world. But the inexorable march of aridity continued. By the late pastoral period, the Sahara was undeniably becoming a drier, harsher place. The once vibrant green heart began to visibly fade. Around 5,000 years before the present, the inevitable happened. Both Takarkori Lake and Tadrart Acacus, those ancient bastions of aquatic life, finally succumbed to the relentless advance of the desert. The archaeological record here is stark and compelling. As the aridity increased, the frequency of fish remains in the settlement plummeted. It's a direct correlation, a clear narrative written in bone fragments and sediment layers. This climatic pressure wasn't just an environmental phenomenon. It was a profound catalyst for human adaptation. As their traditional aquatic food sources dwindled, the people of Takarkori had to pivot, to innovate, to survive. Scholars infer that this forced shift was a major impetus for their transition towards pastoralism, a lifestyle centered around the herding of domesticated animals. Imagine the difficult conversations, the collective decisions, as their entire way of life was challenged by the changing landscape. And even within this new pastoral paradigm, further adaptations were necessary. Early herders focused on larger domesticates, perhaps cattle, but as the land grew drier still, supporting these animals became increasingly difficult. So, they adapted again, shifting their focus to smaller, more resilient domesticates, perhaps goats or sheep, animals better suited to a sparser environment. Yet, even through these periods of increasing aridity, one constant remained. An analysis of the pottery excavated from the rock shelter consistently indicates that water, however scarce, was generally available to the people living at Takarkori. They were masters of finding and conserving this precious resource. The archaeological richness of the Wadi Takarkori area extends beyond the rock shelter itself. The Acacus Mountains are world-renowned for their rock art, a stunning gallery of both petroglyphs, images carved into rock, and pictographs, images painted on rock surfaces. These ancient artworks depict both human and animal figures, offering us fleeting glimpses into the spiritual, social, and daily lives of these early inhabitants. Imagine the stories these images tell, the rituals they might represent, the profound connection these people felt to their environment and the creatures within it. Rock shelters, like Takarkori, are particularly vital to archaeology in this region. Their sheltered environments offer a degree of protection from the harsh Saharan elements that open-air sites simply cannot provide. This natural protection has allowed for the preservation of deep stratigraphic sequences, layers of earth, each representing a different period of occupation, laid down like the pages of a forgotten book. Within these layers, the story of human occupation at Takarkori unfolds over thousands of years, a gradual narrative of changing food pathways, evolving technologies, and enduring human presence. This site is uniquely important because it offers detailed, stratified evidence for a monumental transition in human history, the shift from hunting and gathering to pastoralism. This was a continental-scale change across northern Africa during the Holocene, and Takarkori provides a remarkably clear and detailed record of this transformation. Furthermore, the enclosed environment and the natural aridity of the site have acted as a magnificent preservative, safeguarding a high density of biological remains. Everything from flora and fauna to the precious human remains that speak directly to us across the millennia. The human story at Takarkori is broadly divided into 4 distinct archaeological periods: the late Acacus period, the early pastoral period, the middle pastoral period, and finally, the late pastoral period. Each of these periods represents a different chapter in the lives of the people who called this place home, each marked by unique adaptations, to a constantly changing world. Let's delve deeper into that first chapter. The late Acacus period, spanning from approximately 10,200 to 8,000 years before the present. This was the era of the hunter-gatherers. These were people deeply integrated into their environment, staying in and around the rock shelter for extended periods, suggesting a settled existence, or at least a highly repetitive return to this favorite location. Their diet was diverse, a testament to the richness of the Green Sahara. Plant residues on potsherds from this period clearly indicate the processing of wild plants, a sophisticated culinary practice already in place. The remarkable preservation of baskets containing plant remains further supports this. Imagine these meticulously crafted containers, woven from plant stems and fibers, perhaps used to gather wild greens, berries, or roots. But their diet wasn't limited to plants. These late Acacus peoples were also skilled hunters, particularly of Barbary sheep, a species still found in the region, though now in much scarcer numbers. And, as you might expect, given the abundance of water, they were prolific fishers. In fact, fish bones are the most common faunal remains associated with this period, far outnumbering the bones of birds and mammals, underscoring the vital role of aquatic resources in their diet. The late Acacus period itself is further subdivided, revealing nuances in their way of life. In its earliest phase, LA1, we see the beginnings of stone structure construction, a move towards more permanent or semi-permanent dwellings. By the LA2 phase, analysis of compacted floor sediments suggests an even greater degree of settled living, perhaps indicating growing communities or longer periods of occupation. And as we move into LA3, the number of hearths, the very heart of any ancient home, increases, indicating more intense or prolonged use. This phase also yields a stone windbreak feature, a clever piece of ancient architecture designed to offer protection from the elements, and poignantly, an infant burial, a stark reminder of the human lives lived and lost in this ancient landscape. The artifacts recovered from Takarkori are a treasure trove, each piece telling a part of the story. Beyond the vital bone and stone tools, we find wooden tools, a testament to the preservation power of this arid environment. And then there's the pottery. The pottery found at Takarkori is a story in itself. It dates back to the very beginning of the late Acacus period, making it coeval with the earliest introduction of pottery into the Libyan desert. This suggests that the hunter-gatherers of Takarkori were among the first people in the entire region to adopt this transformative technology. Imagine the innovation, the curiosity, the practical application of this new craft. An analysis of these ancient vessels, using methodologies like canevas, reveals fascinating details. The surface colors of the pottery vary across the different periods of occupation, indicating evolving heating and cooling processes, perhaps changes in kiln construction, firing temperatures, or even fuel sources. 5 different fabric types are present, ranging from coarse to fine. The earlier phases of occupation tend to yield coarser fabrics and thicker walls, suggesting a nascent stage of pottery making, perhaps focused on utility and robustness. As we move into later phases, we see finer fabrics and thinner walls, indicative of a growing sophistication in technique, perhaps an appreciation for aesthetics as well as function. The decorations are typically impressed or incised, adding a personal touch to these utilitarian objects. It's highly probable that individual families manufacture their own pottery, sourcing the raw materials from the surrounding landscape, connecting them intimately with their environment and their craft. And let's not forget the baskets and woven goods, an exceptionally rare find. Fiber goods rarely survive the ravages of time and the elements. Yet at Takarkori, we have evidence of at least 8 different weaving techniques, all of them twined. Twining, a process where horizontal strands are woven through fixed vertical strands, was a skilled craft. Most of these woven goods were constructed from plant stems and fibers, though some even incorporated animal fibers. The majority of these basket remains date to the late Acacus period, further supporting the idea that they were used by hunter-gatherers for the vital task of gathering wild plants. Imagine the skill and patience required to craft these durable containers, essential for their daily lives. Then there are the pigments, vibrant reds and yellows, staining grinding stones and other artifacts. These pigments were likely processed right there in the rock shelter, destined for a much grander purpose: the creation of the captivating pictographs that adorn the rock faces of the Tadrart Acacus. Multiple lower and upper grinding stones, many from the earliest phases of occupation, still bear the indelible marks of these ancient colors. Other artifacts like flakes, stone tools, bone tools, pottery, and even a wooden stick also carry traces of pigment. A broken pebble, showing signs of being painted, and the faint, poorly preserved zoomorphic pictographs directly on the shelter's rocks, whisper of artistic expression and perhaps spiritual connection. These pigments, like so many other resources, were likely sourced from within the very mountains that protected and sustained them. The late Acacus period at Takarkori is a profound testament to the ingenuity and adaptability of early hunter-gatherers. They were not merely surviving. They were thriving, building communities, developing sophisticated technologies, and creating art in a landscape that, though now a desert, was once a vibrant, green heart, pulsing with life and possibility. As we move forward through the subsequent periods of occupation at Takarkori, we will see how these foundations were built upon and how human life continued to transform in the face of monumental environmental change. As we peel back the layers of time at Takarkori, we begin to unearth not just the traces of past lives, but the very tools and creations that shaped their existence. Imagine, for a moment, standing amidst the silent, golden sands of the Tadrart Acacus, where the wind whispers tales of a vibrant, green past. What would you hope to find? What forgotten treasures would speak to you from beneath the dust of millennia? Archaeologists, those diligent chroniclers of the earth, have found a remarkable array of artifacts within the Takarkori rock shelter. These aren't just mere objects. They are echoes from the earth, tangible connections to the hands that crafted them, the minds that conceived them, and the lives they served. From bone tools, sharpened by patient hands, to the sturdy resilience of stone tools, carved from the very mountains that offered shelter, each piece tells a story. Wooden implements, long since turned to ghost-like fragments, whisper of daily tasks, while intricate pottery speaks volumes about culinary practices and cultural identity. Even delicate fiber goods, often lost to the ravages of time, have remarkably survived here, hinting at a world of textile artistry and practical ingenuity. And then, there are the carved figurines, enigmatic and expressive, offering a glimpse into the spiritual or artistic sensibilities of these ancient people. What truly sets Takarkori apart? What makes it a beacon in the study of early human ingenuity is the presence of materials that rarely survive the relentless march of time. Imagine a woven basket, crafted from plant stems and fibers, perhaps adorned with animal hair. In most archaeological contexts, such a delicate item would have long since disintegrated into dust. Yet, at Takarkori, these baskets and woven goods, showcasing at least 8 different twining techniques, have endured. This incredible preservation allows us to marvel at the skill of these ancient weavers, who, primarily in the late Acacus period, likely used these very baskets to gather the wild plants that sustained their lives. To hold a fragment of such a basket, knowing it was held by someone tens of thousands of years ago, is to feel a profound connection across the vast expanse of human history. But the story of Takarkori's material culture extends far beyond the exceptional. Pottery, for instance, represents a monumental leap in human technology and lifestyle. At Takarkori, we find pottery dating back to the very beginning of the late Acacus period, coinciding with its initial introduction to the Libyan desert. This suggests that the hunter-gatherers of Takarkori were among the pioneers of pottery use in this region. Think about that for a moment. Hunter-gatherers, traditionally seen as nomadic, embracing a technology that implies a certain level of settled life, of the need to store and process resources. The pottery itself is a canvas of forgotten techniques and evolving craftsmanship. Analyses reveal a diverse assemblage, with surface colors that vary across periods, indicating different firing and cooling processes. We see a progression from coarser fabrics and thicker walls in earlier phases, suggesting a more rudimentary approach, to finer fabrics and thinner walls in later periods, hinting at growing expertise and perhaps even aesthetic preferences. Two primary decoration types, impressed and incised, speak to distinct artistic expressions. It's not a stretch to imagine individual families, perhaps even specific women, crafting their own pottery from locally sourced raw materials, imbuing each vessel with a unique character, a silent testament to their personal touch and the cultural nuances of their family unit. And then, there are the colors, the pigments that brought vibrancy to their world. Pigments are present at Takarkori in various forms, as raw materials, as residues on tools, and even as faint traces on painted items. These rich ochres, yellows, and reds were likely processed right there in the rock shelter, perhaps to create the captivating pictographs that adorn the walls of the Tadrart Acacus. Imagine the rhythmic grinding of stones, the vivid dust staining the hands of an artist, preparing the very colors that would breathe life into rock art, depicting human figures and a stunning array of fauna. Multiple grinding stones, lower and upper, bear the telltale stains of these ancient pigments, most dating back to the earliest phases of occupation. Other artifacts, like flakes, stone tools, bone tools, and even a wooden stick, also carry traces of these vibrant hues, suggesting their widespread use beyond just rock art. While poorly preserved, there are even hints of zoomorphic pictographs directly on the rocks within the shelter itself, offering a tantalizing glimpse into their artistic and symbolic world. These pigments, likely sourced from the very mountains surrounding Takarkori, were not just decorative. They were expressions of identity, belief, and connection to their environment. Perhaps the most remarkable discovery related to Takarkori's material culture, one that utterly rewrites our understanding of early agriculture, lies in the humble potsherd. Along with the site of Unearthing, Takarkori has yielded potsherds containing the earliest evidence of processed plant remains in the entire world. This isn't just significant, it's groundbreaking. Dating back to between 8200 and 6400 BC, these ancient residues on pottery indicate that the people of Takarkori were actively processing both terrestrial and aquatic plants in their cooking vessels. This discovery pushes back the timeline for plant processing in pottery by thousands of years, placing it firmly within the hunter-gatherer phase of these societies. It paints a picture of sophisticated food acquisition and preparation, long before the widespread adoption of agriculture. But the story of plant processing doesn't end there. Even after the introduction of domesticated animals and the shift towards pastoralism, the people of Takarkori continued to process wild plants in their cooking vessels. Potsherds bearing plant remains have been found across all periods of occupation. The late Acacus, early pastoral, and middle pastoral, with the highest density remarkably coming from the middle pastoral period. This suggests a continued reliance on, and perhaps even a deep appreciation for, wild flora, even as their diets diversified. Both animal and plant residues were extracted from these ancient cooking vessels, but at Takarkori, over half of the potsherds contain plant remains. Imagine the aroma of cattails and potamogeton, aquatic plants, simmering in clay pots over an open fire, a staple of their diet, a taste of the ancient Sahara. Beyond pottery, other abundant plant remains found at Takarkori offer further evidence of their intimate knowledge and utilization of the diverse plant life of the Holocene Sahara. The layers of sediment within the Takarkori rock shelter are a veritable library, each stratum a page in the story of human adaptation and ingenuity. These deposits contain irrefutable evidence that humans occupied this shelter for thousands of years, gradually, almost imperceptibly, changing their food pathways. This enclosed environment, coupled with the Sahara's natural aridity, has preserved an exceptionally high density of biological remains, a treasure trove for archaeologists. Not only flora and fauna, But even human remains, some partially mummified, have survived, offering a rare and intimate glimpse into the lives and even the genetic makeup of these ancient Saharan people. The archaeological narrative of Takarkori is meticulously divided into 4 key periods of human occupation, each representing a distinct chapter in their relationship with this land and its changing climate. From the late Acacus period, where hunter-gatherers refined their methods, to the early, middle, and late pastoral periods, where the rhythm of life became intertwined with the movement of herds. Takarkori holds the detailed stratigraphy necessary to preserve the evidence for this profound transition from hunting and gathering to pastoralism. This site is not just a location. It's a testament to human resilience, adaptability, and the enduring echoes that their material culture has left behind in the silent, sun-drenched heart of the Sahara. These echoes, unearthed from the earth, speak volumes if only we take the time to listen. And so, we arrive at the very heart of the human story at Takarkori, the generations themselves etched into the layers of sand and time. We've spoken of the shifting climate, the material echoes, but now we delve into the lives that unfolded here, the societies that adapted, evolved, and ultimately redefined what it meant to survive in an ever-changing world. Imagine, if you will, the earliest inhabitants of Takarkori, arriving in what we now call the late Acacus period, roughly 10,000 years ago. These were hunter-gatherers, yes, but not in the fleeting, transient sense we might sometimes conjure. The archaeological record suggests a deeper, more sustained connection to this specific rock shelter. They weren't just passing through, they were settling in, making this a central point in their lives, constructing structures with stone as early as the LA1 phase. Think of the purposeful arrangement of stones, defining space, perhaps offering a measure of privacy or protection, a tangible mark of human intent upon the landscape. Their lives were intricately woven with the bounty of a greener Sahara. We see the clear evidence of wild plants being processed, not just for immediate consumption, but perhaps for storage for future use. The presence of baskets, those ephemeral treasures of fiber goods, speaks volumes. These weren't just decorative items. They were essential tools for gathering, for carrying the harvest of the wild. It's a profound connection to the landscape, understanding which plants offered sustenance, when they were ready, and how to prepare them. And it's a connection that continued even as other aspects of their lives transformed. But their diet wasn't solely plant-based. The waters of a nearby wadi and the persistent lakes provided a crucial resource: fish. The sheer density of fish remains from this period tells us that fishing was not a casual pastime, but a cornerstone of their sustenance, a reliable source of protein in a world that for a time was far more verdant than the Sahara we know today. They hunted Barbary sheep, a testament to their skill and understanding of the local fauna, though the faunal assemblage from this early period clearly shows a strong reliance on aquatic resources. As the generations passed, so too did their ways of life. From the LA1 phase, where basic structures emerged, to LA2, where compacted floor sediments suggest a more settled existence within a shelter, we see a subtle but continuous evolution. The increasing number of hearths from LA1 to LA3 isn't just a sign of more cooking. It hints at growing family units, more communal gatherings, perhaps a more consistent presence within a shelter. And then, a poignant detail from the LA3 phase, a stone windbreak feature, offering shelter from the elements, and an infant burial, a quiet, heartbreaking testament to life and loss, reminding us that even in these ancient times, the bonds of family and community ran deep. Then, around 8,300 years ago, a new chapter begins, the early pastoral period. This is where the story truly shifts, where the relationship between humans and their environment undergoes a profound transformation. Early pastoral animal herders arrive, and with them, the first stirrings of domestication. Their occupation at Takarkori was stable, a consistent presence, suggesting that this was more than just a temporary encampment. This period also marks a somber, yet invaluable, turning point in our understanding of these people, the first human remains. Several burials have been documented from this early pastoral phase, and strikingly, all of them are women or juveniles. This observation, while not conclusive, opens a fascinating window into their societal structures, perhaps hinting at a matrilineal society, where lineage and community might have been traced through the female line. Imagine the matriarchs, the wisdom passed down, the central role of women in these early herding communities. Even with the introduction of domesticated animals, the echoes of their hunter-gatherer past persisted. They continued to fish, an activity still prominent in the faunal remains of this period, and they still hunted. The processing of wild plants and pottery also continued, a tradition deeply ingrained, showing a practical blend of old and new subsistence strategies. It wasn't a sudden, wholesale abandonment of their previous ways, but a gradual integration, a broadening of their food pathways. The early pastoral period itself is subdivided into two phases, both containing burials, signifying a continued, stable presence. Moving forward, we enter the middle pastoral period, roughly 7,100 years ago. This is where the commitment to domesticated animals truly deepens. The people of Takarkori began to rely more heavily on the products of their herds, and crucially, this is the first period for which we have direct evidence of them milking their cattle. Imagine the daily rhythms, the lowing of the herds, the careful tending of these vital animals, a new form of sustenance woven into the fabric of their lives. These pastoralists would return to Takarkori seasonally with their herds, suggesting a more nomadic lifestyle than their predecessors, but one that still centered on this familiar rock shelter. Yet, the past was not entirely left behind. They continued to fish, perhaps as a supplementary protein source, or simply as a well-established tradition. And the processing of wild plants and pottery, remarkably, reached its highest density during this middle pastoral period. This suggests that even as their lives became more centered on herding, the knowledge of wild flora and the culinary practices surrounding them remained critically important. It speaks to a balanced diet, a pragmatic approach to survival, utilizing all available resources. The middle pastoral phase also yields more burials of young individuals and women, mirroring the patterns of the early pastoral period. And here, we encounter something truly remarkable. Some of these individuals are incredibly well preserved, showing signs of partial mummification. The dry desert environment, in its harsh indifference, has inadvertently safeguarded these ancient remains, offering an unparalleled glimpse into the very physical presence of these people. Again, this period is split into two phases. Interestingly, the number of hearths doesn't increase, unlike in the late Acacus, perhaps reflecting a different pattern of occupation. Sediments from Middle Pastoral 1 suggest continued habitation within the rock shelter itself, but then a subtle yet significant shift in Middle Pastoral 2, strata of dung. This isn't just animal waste, it's a clue. It suggests that perhaps the rock shelter was no longer primarily a human dwelling, but was instead used as a pen for domesticates, a safe haven for their precious herds. This indicates a growing reliance on their animals, and possibly a shift in where the humans themselves were making their homes, perhaps in more temporary structures nearby. Finally, we arrive at the late pastoral period, beginning around 5,900 years ago. Here, the story of Takarkori becomes one of diminishing returns, of increasing challenges. Occupation was less sustained, a reflection of the changing climate and the growing aridity of the Sahara. Smaller, more mobile groups of pastoral herders utilized Takarkori no longer as a home, but as a temporary shelter, again evidenced by the accumulating layers of dung. The archaeological record clearly shows a decrease in the markers of consistent human presence, fewer grinding stones, fewer burials within the shelter itself, and a significant decline in fish remains, signaling the increasing scarcity of those once abundant aquatic resources. The tradition of processing plants and pottery, so strong in earlier periods, seems to vanish from the archaeological record of this final phase. The trend for burials also shifts dramatically. Instead of interments within the rock shelter, the preference moved towards cairns, stone mounds built over graves, out on the open landscape. Though one burial from this period is still found at Takarkori, it's an outlier, a last echo of a long tradition. This late pastoral period coincides with the very end of the African humid period, that long era of a verdant Sahara. Researchers speculate, and the evidence strongly supports, that the relentless march of desertification and climate change in the Sahara ultimately prompted these pastoralists to eventually abandon Takarkori, leaving it to the whispers of the wind and the encroaching sands. The green heart of the Sahara was fading, and with it, the long human story of Takarkori. Now, we arrive at perhaps the most tantalizing secret that Takarkori held, a secret whispered not through ancient tools or crumbling hearths, but through the very essence of life itself, our DNA. For generations, the extreme heat and dry conditions of the Sahara have made the extraction of ancient DNA from human remains an almost insurmountable challenge. The very elements that preserve so much of Takarkori's material culture seem to conspire against revealing the genetic stories of its people. But sometimes, against all odds, history offers a glimpse, a fleeting moment when the impossible becomes real. Within the silent depths of the Takarkori rock shelter, archaeologists carefully unearthed 15 burials, a quiet community of women, juveniles, and children. Most of these interments were nestled close together, deep within the protective embrace of the shelter, dating primarily to the early pastoral period. Yet, it was two individuals from the middle pastoral period, preserved with a remarkable degree of mummification, that offered an unprecedented opportunity. Their tissues, against all expectations, had survived. And so, for the very first time, ancient DNA was successfully extracted from human remains in the Sahara. Imagine the tension, the painstaking precision required in those laboratories, as scientists attempted to coax these ancient genetic whispers from the desert's grasp. The results were nothing short of groundbreaking. The two women shared identical haplotypes from a basal haplogroup N, a genetic lineage that had never before been seen in Saharan Africa. This was a profound revelation. It suggested a connection that stretched far beyond the known migrations and genetic landscapes of the region. Researchers began to postulate, with growing excitement, that this unique genetic signature could have originated from the Near East, perhaps traveling with pastoral herders and their revolutionary practices tens of thousands of years ago. It painted a picture of ancient journeys, of knowledge and people moving across vast and now desolate lands, bringing with them not just new ways of life, but entirely new genetic threads. Further investigation, using isotopic analysis of these individuals, reinforced the emerging narrative. The data consistently supported the idea that the people laid to rest within the rock shelter shared a common geographic origin, underscoring the sense of a cohesive, perhaps even kin-based, community inhabiting Takarkori. But the story didn't end there. The tireless pursuit of knowledge continued, pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. In 2025, a team of researchers from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig revisited these precious samples. Their advanced sequencing techniques unlocked even deeper secrets, revealing a genetic tapestry far more intricate than previously imagined. They discovered that the majority of the ancestry of these two individuals came from an unknown, ancient North African lineage. This lineage, they found, was related to an African admixture component observed in the Ibero-Mauritians, a people who lived in North Africa during the Late Stone Age. However, there were critical distinctions. While the Ibero-Mauritian remains from Tadrart showed a significant Neanderthal ancestry, roughly half that of Eurasians, the Takarkori samples exhibited much less Neanderthal admixture, though still more than contemporary sub-Saharan Africans. This led the study to a truly monumental conclusion. The people of Takarkori largely represented an extinct population, native to North Africa, which had diverged there before the pivotal out-of-Africa migration that ultimately gave rise to Eurasians. This suggests a population that remained largely isolated within Africa, separate from both sub-Saharan African and Eurasian groups, for a very, very long time. The genetic models indicated that the Takarkori people derived a staggering 93% of their ancestry from this previously unknown African group, with only a minor 7% contribution from an Natufian-like population from Middle East. And the implications reverberated further, shedding new light on the Taffral people themselves. The study suggested that Taffral ancestry was a composite, approximately 60% from a Natufian-like Levantine population, and a significant 40% derived from a Takarkori-like ancestral North African population. Crucially, the researchers emphasized that the Takarkori people were distinct. They were genetically unique, separate from both contemporary sub-Saharan Africans and from non-Africans or Eurasians. The presence of only a minor component of non-African ancestry, coupled with the absence of sub-Saharan African ancestry, challenged previous interpretations. For a long time, it was thought that the Green Sahara acted as a bustling corridor, a vibrant superhighway connecting northern and sub-Saharan Africa, facilitating extensive gene flow. But the genetic evidence from Takarkori suggested otherwise. Johannes Krauss, one of the lead authors from the Max Planck Institute, summarized the profound significance of these findings, stating that the Takarkori lineage likely represents a remnant of the genetic diversity present in northern Africa between 50,000 and 20,000 years ago. Consider that for a moment. This isn't just about ancient bones or tools. It's about tracing the deep currents of human migration and evolution. It tells us that the Sahara, far from being an empty expanse, once harbored unique human populations whose genetic stories are only now beginning to emerge from the sand. The people of Takarkori, with their distinct ancestry, their mastery of a changing landscape, their pottery filled with aquatic plants, and their peaceful burials within the rock shelter, offer a window into a part of our shared human story that has long remained hidden. Their existence challenges us to rethink our understanding of early African population dynamics and the true genetic complexity of humanity's journey across the planet. The vibrant green heart of the Sahara may have faded into a vast desert, but the genetic echoes of its ancient inhabitants continue to resonate, telling us a story of isolation, resilience, and a profound, unique heritage that truly makes them a secret of the sand, unlocked at last. And as the winds continue to shape the dunes of Takarkori, we are left to ponder the endless, unfolding narratives hidden within the ancient world, waiting for us to listen just a little closer. And so, our journey through the sands of Takarkori draws to a close. From the shifting climates that birthed and eventually claimed its ancient lakes, to the delicate baskets woven by forgotten hands, the revolutionary pottery, the vibrant pigments, and the profound genetic story etched into the very bones of its inhabitants, Takarkori stands as a testament to humanity's enduring spirit. It reminds us that even in the most remote corners of our world, life thrived, innovated, and evolved in ways we are only just beginning to comprehend. I hope this deep dive into Takarkori's past has offered you a moment of reflection and a fresh perspective on the vast tapestry of history. If you've enjoyed this narration, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more journeys into the depths of our shared past. What fascinating corner of history would you like to explore next? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep vibing with history.